Life is always full of constant change. It can never be reduced to just one color. Sometimes we feel like we are on top, full of joy and freedom, but then everything can change suddenly and unexpectedly. Those happy moments can disappear quickly, like smoke in the air, giving way to sadness, loneliness, or a sense of loss. Those are the times when we feel that life is no longer as stable as we want, like the moon is always changing, sometimes bright, sometimes dim. In such difficult times, we can easily fall into a feeling of helplessness when everything seems to be against us. However, one important thing I learned is that this change is not something negative. In fact, it is part of the law of the universe, the impermanence that Buddhism always emphasizes. Life is cyclical, and each cycle brings with it different challenges, failures, and inevitable breakdowns. But failure is not the end. On the contrary, it is an opportunity for us to grow and learn. Looking back on this process, I realize that each time I stumble, I understand more about myself and about what is truly important in life. Every difficulty, every challenge is not something to be feared, but a valuable lesson for us to become stronger. Just as trees must go through cold winters to bloom in spring, we also need to face difficulties to realize the true value of joy and happiness. While we cannot control everything that happens in life, mastering our emotions and attitudes towards new events is important. When we accept impermanence and change, we will realize that this transformation brings new opportunities for growth. Change is inevitable, but instead of denying it, I have learned to embrace it calmly, like watching a storm pass, knowing that after the storm, the sky will be clear again. One thing that I always ponder is that we do not always have to fight against the difficulties in life. Sometimes, just take a step back and look at things more objectively. We will see that everything will be okay. Patience and faith in life are the keys to overcoming any challenge. Feeling lost, lonely, or defeated are only temporary states, and it is important that we do not let them dominate our minds and lives for long. I believe that every difficult moment is an opportunity to discover what we truly need and want in life. It helps us realize deeper spiritual values, precious relationships, and most importantly, peace of mind. The world is always changing, and each change opens new doors, leading us to deeper experiences and understanding of ourselves. So instead of trying to avoid change, I learned to accept and embrace it as part of the journey of growth. Life is always full of challenges, but I believe that these challenges will help me become more stable, stronger, and ultimately happier. When we know that everything can change, we will feel more free in the way we live and face this life. Death is something that no one can avoid, a part of life that we cannot deny or run away from. Although we often do not want to think about it, thinking about death can help us look at life more clearly and deeply. When facing death, everything in life suddenly becomes small and temporary. Material ambitions, tense relationships, hatred, and resentment seem to no longer be important. That is when we realize, if we only have one day left to live, will we continue to race against life? Or will we stop to cherish the simple but precious moments? Death is an inevitable fate, but when we think about death, we also have the opportunity to change our perspective on life. This does not mean living in anxiety or fear, but living mindfully, in a clear awareness of the value of each moment in life. We often get caught up in the whirlwind of work, money, and temporary relationships, forgetting that life is short. In facing death, we can learn to love more, to cherish true relationships, and to live more meaningfully. Living each day as if it were our last does not mean living carelessly or rushing. In fact, it is an invitation to live with awareness, with gratitude, and with a clear understanding of what is most important. Every moment in life, no matter how small or ordinary, can become an opportunity to show love and care to those around us and to ourselves. It is these moments, however seemingly insignificant, that can bring true peace and happiness. When we think about death, we do not need to fall into despair or pessimism. In fact, it is a powerful reminder for us to look back at life, to live true to ourselves, without being pressured by society or the expectations of others. It reminds us that each day is a gift, and it is in each moment that we can find the true meaning and value of life. So, instead of fearing or avoiding death, we should learn to face it calmly, with the understanding that death is not the end, but an indispensable part of the cycle of life. When we live each day as if it were our last, we will learn to appreciate the simplest things in life, from sincere conversations, warm hugs, to quiet moments, to reflect on ourselves and the world around us. Ultimately, this awareness helps us live a more meaningful life, filled with love and gratitude. When we know that death can come at any time, we will no longer waste time on meaningless things, but will spend time loving. Life is not always perfect, and none of us are perfect. Everyone has flaws and weaknesses that cannot be denied. This reality sometimes makes us feel dissatisfied and uncomfortable with ourselves and the people around us. However, instead of focusing on those flaws or weaknesses, we should learn to look at life and people with a more open and tolerant view. This does not mean that we have to accept mistakes and shortcomings without thinking, but we learn to understand that each person has their own story, their own reasons for their actions or decisions. This life is full of relativity. Nothing is absolute and perfect. The failures or mistakes of others are not things that need to be criticized or condemned, but are opportunities for us to learn and grow. When we accept that perfection is a seemingly attainable concept, but is in fact very far away, we will find it easier to forgive others and also forgive ourselves. Forgiveness, I believe, is one of the most noble acts we can perform, not only for others but also for ourselves. Sometimes we are too harsh on ourselves, too blaming for past mistakes that we cannot forgive. But that forgiveness, both for others and for ourselves, is a priceless gift that helps us free ourselves from unnecessary anxiety, anger, and guilt. Forgiveness is not only an act that helps ease the pain of others, but also a way for us to heal our own souls. When you can forgive others, you are freeing yourself from the invisible burdens that you have been carrying all this time. Sadness, anger, feelings of betrayal or disappointment can no longer hold your heart if you learn to forgive and accept everything calmly. Life is full of challenges, and sometimes we face difficult situations that make us feel hurt or treated unfairly. But it is in those moments that tolerance and forgiveness will become the key to opening up a lighter and more peaceful life. Forgiveness does not mean we ignore mistakes, but it allows us to move forward, not stuck in the past. Forgiveness, once practiced regularly, will help us change the way we look at life. Instead of only seeing mistakes, we will see the growth from those failures. And instead of holding on to negative emotions, we will find ourselves lighter and freer. Forgiveness is not an easy process, but when you understand that it is part of growing up, of learning to live in peace with yourself and the world around you, you will realize that forgiveness is a gift that you give to yourself more than to others. Tolerance and forgiveness are truly important lessons in life that each of us should learn and practice every day. The challenges we face may cause us pain, but it is through those challenges that we can find the power of tolerance and forgiveness. When we understand and forgive others, we also learn to love ourselves more deeply. This will not only improve our relationships with those around us, but also help our souls become lighter and more peaceful in life. For me, forgiveness is not just a simple act, but a way of life, an attitude that I have learned through my growing up years. Past mistakes cannot be changed, but we can learn to accept them and move on. Every day, I remind myself of the need for forgiveness, of not letting negative emotions dominate our minds and hearts. And I believe that when we do so, we will live a more meaningful, lighter, and freer life. The philosophy of dependent origination, also known as the principle of cause and effect, is one of the profound and important teachings in Buddhism. It shows that all things and phenomena are closely related to each other. Nothing exists independently or separately. Every action, thought, or word can create profound effects on the lives of others, and vice versa. Every action from others can also affect us. Thus, in this world, nothing happens without cause and effect. Everything is the result of what has been sown before. A story in Buddhism once told about the Buddha sitting under a big tree, contemplating the philosophy of dependent origination. A man approached him, looked at his peaceful face, and expressed surprise. "You are always so calm and peaceful. How can I achieve serenity like you?" The Buddha smiled, raised his hand, pointed to the leaves on the tree and said, "If you want peace, look at these leaves. They grow from sunlight, soil, and water. Likewise, your life must be nourished by good actions and thoughts. When you plant the seeds of love, forgiveness, and kindness, you will receive the sweet fruit of peace." The man remained silent, contemplating the Buddha's teachings. Our lives are the same. Each of our actions can directly or indirectly affect others, and conversely, our lives are also affected by the actions of those around us. We cannot live in isolation from this world. Every moment is a connection between us and everyone, with all things. Therefore, when we understand that everything is connected, we will realize that each of our actions has an impact on others and also reflects on our own lives. In that process, one of the important factors that helps us overcome suffering is forgiveness. Forgiveness is not only an action to resolve external conflicts, but also an action that helps us free ourselves from internal suffering. When we forgive others, we not only heal the wounds in the relationship, but also free ourselves from negative emotions such as hatred, anger, and insecurity. It is forgiveness that opens our hearts, creating conditions for love and harmony. I myself have experienced difficult times in forgiveness. There are deep hurts, sufferings that I cannot forget. But when I understood that those emotions only kept me in a vicious circle, unable to help me move forward, I began to change my perspective. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting, but I choose to no longer be dominated by past pain, to make my soul lighter and my heart open to receive good things. Forgiveness is also a way to realize that no one is perfect, and we can all make mistakes. When we forgive not only others, but also ourselves, so that we do not get stuck in blaming and obsessing over mistakes. Thus, forgiveness not only helps relationships become better, but is also the key to freeing ourselves from mental burdens. The philosophy of dependent origination is not just a theory, but a way of life, an approach that helps us understand the connection between humans and all things. It teaches us to look at life from a larger perspective, where every action we take has meaning and impacts the world around us. When we practice these principles, our lives become peaceful, meaningful, and filled with love. Life is full of challenges and difficulties, and those are the lessons that each of us must go through to grow. We cannot avoid difficulties, but it is in those moments that we realize the hidden strength within ourselves. When facing challenges, many people easily feel helpless and exhausted, but that is when we need to look back at ourselves to realize the potential abilities that we never thought of. By facing adversity, we learn to stand firm, persevere, and be braver. I believe that every time we overcome a challenge, we become stronger. It is like forging a diamond when it has to go through extremely high temperatures and pressure to be able to shine. Likewise, we humans need to hone ourselves through each difficulty, and it is in those difficulties that we learn to accept, be resilient, and finally grow up. Happiness, in my opinion, is not a destination, but a journey. This is the concept that I always aim for in life. When we consider happiness as a journey, we not only seek great things, but also appreciate the small values that life brings. Simple moments like a cozy meal with family or an afternoon chatting with loved ones are the moments that bring true peace and happiness. When we live with gratitude, we will realize that it is those simple things that are the source of true joy. Many of us often seek happiness in distant things, big dreams. But I realize that if we only live to dream about the future, we will miss the joys in the present. Happiness is not a goal to achieve, but a feeling, a state when we know how to live fully with what we have. Quiet moments with family, meetings with friends, or moments alone in silence are all precious pieces of happiness. Perhaps, in today's society, with its fast pace of life and constant demands, we easily forget that true happiness lies in the simple things around us. Just like a field of ripe rice, happiness is not something far away, but is a connection with the people around us, with the values that we possess. We need to learn to appreciate the simple but true things to find peace of mind. Finally, I believe that every challenge we encounter brings a valuable lesson. Difficulties in life are not to knock us down, but to make us more mature, stronger, and happier. When we understand the value of the journey, we will no longer be afraid of challenges, but will see them as an indispensable part of our lives. I myself have had periods of living superficially, letting the pressures of work and life wash away. But when I began to practice mindful living, I realized that happiness is not something far away or elusive. It lies in very ordinary moments: a family meal, waking up early in the morning and listening to the birds chirping, or stopping to watch the sunset. I also understand that living as if today were your last day does not mean living in a hurry or rushing. It is not about abandoning everything to satisfy temporary desires, but living consciously, living with love and responsibility. Each passing day is an opportunity for us to do good, to connect, and to feel more deeply the meaning of life. Living as if today is your last day is not a way of thinking about death, but rather, it is a reminder to live more fully. Life is a series of moments, and each moment is precious. When we learn to appreciate the present, live sincerely, be kind and love, life becomes more meaningful. Don't wait until you face loss or death to realize this. Start today. Say I love you to those you care about. Spend time doing what you love and live with an open heart. Because in the end, it's not how long you live, but how you live. Live as if today is your last day, not to fear, but to love and appreciate life